Okay, so again, this afternoon, I welcome everybody coming back to join us for this Buddhist Global Relief New Year retreat program. And this time I will be introducing our speakers, our teachers. And so Buddhist Global Relief, though it's established by myself, but we say that we are an interdenominational Buddhist community with teachers from different Buddhist traditions. I myself, of course, I'm in the Theravada tradition, as is Ayanda Bodhi. Dhammadippa is now in the Japanese Zen tradition, and the Venerable Monlam and Lamsal are in the Tibetan tradition, sort of all of us being transplants to American soil. So now I'll be introducing them. First, Venerable Thupten Lamsal, right? Is that correct? So she was born in Australia, and then she moved to the United States in 2017 in order to study with Venerable Thupten Chodron. Venerable Thupten Chodron, she's an American bhikshuni in the Tibetan tradition, very close student of the Dalai Lama. And now I lost my biographical file. Where is it? And so she came to the United States to study and ordain with Venerable Thupten Chodron at the Shravasti Abbey, which is in eastern Washington State. I think it's Newton is the nearby town. She took novice ordination in 2018 and then full bhikshuni ordination in Taiwan in 2024. And before ordination, she worked as a university-based public health researcher and a health promoter at a small non-governmental organization. And so serving as part of the BGR Sangha Council provides her with a practical outlook for her passion for the health and well-being of all. Then Venerable Thupten Munlam, who is on the left, I assume you are US born. So,
Yes.
okay, okay. So she began her Dharma journey in 2014 in Colorado, inspired by teachings on love and compassion. Then her interest deepened after a retreat on Chanrezig or Avalokiteshvara of Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And then she came to study again with Venerable Thupten Chodron. She moved to the Shravasti Abbey in 2021. She took the trainee ordination in 2022, and then the bhikshuni ordination also in Taiwan in 2024. At the Shravasti Abbey, she serves on the community care team, while the guest care team helps manage the kitchen and edits Dharma materials. When do you get to sleep?
You don't.
She's committed to the Bodhisattva path. That's why. So Bodhisattvas never sleep, and she aspires to actualize her highest potentials and to help others to do the same. Okay, so now we turn the microphone over to the two of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, for inviting us. And thank you to all of the staff, board members, and supporters of BGR. It's
Ils
a
sont
really
jeunes, hein?
incredible
Non, là-dessus, je
program.
reviens pas. Ils ont-ils 18 ans?
And
Ça doit.
Wait, there's another voice speak.
there is. If you're not muted, please go ahead
Yeah,
and mute your microphones. And so we're, yeah, very delighted to be here with you to work on how to heal divisions in these challenging times. And so we'll start with meditation. And I'll set a motivation for the group. We'll take refuge and recite the 4 immeasurables. And then we'll look at the disadvantages of anger. And then Venerable Lomsel will talk about cultivating forgiveness. And then she'll also lead a meditation after that. And we'll leave lots of time for questions and hopefully answers. And so go ahead and get comfortable in your meditation posture. Your spine upright. You can scan through your body. And when you find places with tension, just invite that tension to let go. And we'll put the refuge and 4 immeasurable verses in the chat. And start with that. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. We'll do a few minutes of breathing meditation. So you can Let yourself be right here in the moment, in this meditation. And actually, before we do the breathing meditation, I'm going to back up and we're going to start with a little bit of our motivation of what we are doing here together today. And so we can think that we are here today meditating and listening to the Dharma in order to recognize and let go of our faults and weaknesses, and also recognize and enhance our good qualities and abilities. We want to support harmony and healing discord within ourselves, our communities, and as much as we can within the greater world. And we aren't here just for ourselves alone. We live in a very interconnected world where we are completely dependent on the kindness of others every single day just to stay alive. And so we don't want to do our spiritual practice or anything else in our life just for our own benefit, but make it for the benefit of all living beings. And so we can put our participation today firmly within this framework of being of service to all beings. Now we'll take a few minutes to pay attention to our breath, not altering it or changing it or breathing deeply. Just simply noticing the body breathing. Now we'll take a few moments to Recognize our shared humanity. That each and every living being on the planet is just like us, wanting happiness and wanting to be free from suffering. And as we contemplate this, we're able to feel more connected to others and have motivation to act with kindness and compassion. And so bring to mind someone in your life that you interact with, who's kind of a stranger, but someone that you can visualize and imagine in front of you, but you don't really know them well. Bring that person to mind. And as you think of this person, think that just like me, this person wishes to be happy, does not want suffering, wishes to be loved, to find joy and meaning, just like me. And we'll just pause for a moment, recognizing this very important universal fact. And now bring to mind someone in your life that you find difficult for one reason or another. Think of this person and reflect that just like me, this person wishes to be happy, does not want to experience physical or mental pain and suffering, wants to be loved, wants prosperity, good health, and loving relationships, just like me. And we'll expand the circle and include now everyone in your neighborhood. Think that just like me, everyone in my neighborhood wants to be happy, wants to be free of pain and misery, wants to be loved, wants prosperity, good health, and to be safe. We're going to expand our mind even further and include the entire world. Over 8 billion people are just like me. Every single person on earth does not want to suffer, wishes to be happy, wants to be loved, have prosperity, good health, and safety, just like me. And rest your mind here on this recognition of this quality that each and every one of us share. The deepest wish of every being is just like me in wanting happiness and wanting to be free of unsatisfactoriness, misery, all forms of suffering. Gently open your eyes. And so, what is it that gets in the way of our remembering this basic fact that we all want happiness and to be free from suffering? One of the main reasons is anger. And we can think about conflicts in our own personal lives and on a larger societal and global scale, and see that anger is involved in all of these conflicts. And we might think that when something happens that we don't like and we disagree with, that there's only two choices. We either are angry about it, or we're totally complicit and in agreement with what the other person is doing. If we're not angry, we must be totally supportive of the harmful actions that we're seeing around us. But if we can understand our mind and work with our anger to be able to subdue it, we can keep a more balanced perspective and respond to challenges with a calm and clear mind that can seek to find a lasting solution for everyone involved. And of course, this isn't something easy or quick. This is definitely a long-term aspiration. And anger is there's a big range of what it means in the Buddhist context. Anger can range from being irritated or annoyed, frustrated, resentful, spiteful, belligerent, enraged. It's this really wide spectrum. And it arises because we are exaggerating the negative qualities of a person or a thing, or we're superimposing negative qualities on that thing, that person, that situation that aren't there. And then we want to either harm what is stimulating that anger, or we want to get away from it. And we can respond to anger in different ways. We can be really aggressive, or we can also be extremely passive. So anger is really talking about what's going on in our minds. It's not so much the external behavior, but what is going on in our mind. We all have a story about someone who has harmed us and how they have made us angry. We have every right to hate them. Somehow hating them, we think, will make us feel good. And if we think about it, this really is what we want, is to be happy. And so we're constantly searching for happiness and wanting to be free from discomfort. And this, like we just reflected on, is the same for all beings. But let's just think, like, am I happy when I'm angry? Or when I'm annoyed or frustrated? Is that a content mind? Because if anger was the cause of human happiness, we should be over the moon joyful when we're angry. So I think we can see from our own experience that this isn't what happens. And we really need to question whether anger is beneficial for the human happiness that we're all seeking. We tend to think the problem is external, is out there, some objective situation that we're just responding to in a totally logical way by getting angry. And when we go over the story again and again in our mind about how right we are, about how wrong they are, our anger is just perpetuating and building up. And it's not so often that we're in the habit of really questioning what's going on inside. And as long as the problem is out there, what other people are doing, we are thinking, there's not much we can do about that. And so we are kind of like a helpless victim. We have no choice but to get angry. And what the Buddha said is that if we look at our experience, anger starts right here in our own heart. The cause of our anger is the seed of anger in our heart and mind. And this is rooted in our ignorance and misunderstanding how we exist and how other people and things exist. We have the idea that there's this big, strong self whose happiness is the most important. And so we get attached to what makes us happy, which is always external out there as well. And when something interferes with that external thing interfering with our externally derived happiness, we get angry or we want to get away from it. And this is the story of our lives. So it's important to see how our assumptions and misinterpretations of things lead to the seed of anger ripening into a full-grown attack of anger, this full-grown plant from the seed in our heart. Because the anger in our own heart and mind is the only anger we can really do anything about. We have been trying our whole lives, or at least I'll speak for myself, to change other people and to change situations. And I haven't really found it successful. The only person I can change is me right here. We can influence others. And as we cultivate our kindness and compassion and good qualities, we can influence them in a really positive way. But the only person we can change is ourselves. And what's really good is that we've been changing in every single moment. Change is not difficult for us. It happens very naturally. And so we can be really intentional about the way that we are changing and aim our mind so that we're growing in the way that we want to grow, to be the kind of person that we want to be. And it can be hard, considering that we've lived our whole life thinking that when there's a conflict, I'm right, you're wrong. You change. And it's a process of working towards forgiveness and cultivating compassion. So we really need to see the disadvantages of our anger. This will help us, be motivated to actually make these changes and get out of this rut that I know my mind is definitely in. It's easier to cultivate anger than to cultivate love when I am challenged. And coming back to this idea of what makes us happy, we can think about when we are holding a grudge, when we are holding tight on our position, even if everybody else in the universe is agreeing with us and says, yes, you're right, that person is harmful. Is this a cause for our happiness? And when we're angry, we're not really thinking clearly. We might come up with some solutions to our problems that work great for us, but usually will lead to more problems and aren't really taking the, consideration of others into account. When we have a calm and balanced mind, we're able to communicate more clearly. And good communication is not easy. And it involves expressing our feelings and thoughts and words and gestures using examples that make sense to the other person and helps them to understand what we're trying to say. When we're under the sway of anger, we are not thinking as clearly as usual or able to express ourselves pleasantly. We do or say things that we later come to really regret. We break trust and harm important relationships. And sadly, we have the tendency to say the most awful things to the people that we care about the most. To those we are closest to, we can treat the worst. And is that promoting harmony, goodwill, and togetherness? And we can reflect on a time that we were angry. And as if we step into the other person's shoes and look at ourselves from that person's perspective, we can have more understanding of why they were upset and hurt. And when we're able to recognize the harmful effects of our actions that we do under the influence of anger, we can apologize and take responsibility for our unskillful actions. And if we don't start to counteract our anger, we risk letting it build where we can develop into kind of an old, bitter person. Have you met anyone like that who's just kind of really angry after years of cultivating this habit? And we also risk dying with anger in our mind because that's just the habit that we're living with every day. Another disadvantage of anger is that we are disagreeable, bad-tempered, and often in a bad mood. And do you all like to be around someone in a bad mood? We're not very pleasant to be around. And our anger spreads to others who we're interacting with, those who are close by us, and even those, who are in the supermarket next to us, who we, say something sharp to, or the folks on the road who we aren't so kind to. Our anger spreads. It ruins friendships, and we generate a lot of tension with our colleagues. And when our mind is filled with anger, it prevents us from cultivating these qualities of love and compassion, which are so needed in ourselves and in the world in general. And when something happens that we don't like, and we notice the anger arising, we can really question, what good is this anger? Can I do something about this situation? If I can, there's no need to get angry because I can take some wise action. Social problems and injustice can be changed, and so we can work with a calm mind to improve the situation. And on the other hand, if there's nothing we can do about it and the situation can't be changed, then anger also doesn't make sense because it's just making us more miserable because there's nothing we can do about the situation anyways. So seeing the disadvantages of anger doesn't mean that we should not get angry. Should doesn't matter. Anger arises in the mind. It's the reality of our experience in the moment. But the question is, do I want to continue to be angry? Now that I've noticed I'm angry, what am I going to do about it? It's not about, I should or I shouldn't be angry. It is just, hey, yeah, I notice I'm really frustrated right now. How can I shift my mind to see the perspective of a wider perspective? How can I work with my anger? Because anger really distorts our perception of others. And when there's a group of people that we don't like, the other side, let's call them, we put them all together in this one group and we think they're all the same, holding the same views and perspectives. But we can see that ourselves, we are changing all the time. And if we're in a group with others, there's going to be a diversity of ideas and opinions. Like, sure, we have some things that we agree on, but we're not all the same person. And so we need to be careful that when we make an enemy out of a group, that we're not lumping everybody into this caricature of this is how you are, and this is all you ever will be, and you are always going to be like this. There's some exaggeration there. And the person is not the actions that they do. The person and their actions are different. When folks do harmful actions, they are not happy. They are discontent, agitated, angry, unsettled. And this is a reason for compassion. They are actually suffering. And we don't want them to suffer. If they were happy and felt love and compassion in their hearts, they wouldn't be acting in a way that harmed others. And so as we work towards cultivating compassion, we're not condoning the actions. We're not in agreement with the actions. We can really disagree with these actions and see that they're harmful, but still see that here is a living being just like me who wants to be happy and free from suffering. Because we all do unskillful, harmful things sometimes. And we are not our actions. We all have the Buddha nature and this Buddha potential. There is not one living being that is irredeemable. Our mind is described as being like the clear sky. And just like the clouds that come into the sky on a daily basis, they are not the nature of the sky. We know there's a difference between the sky and the clouds. And so just like our disturbing emotions like anger, attachment, jealousy, greed, these also are not the nature of our mind. They can be purified and removed forever. And every living being has this potential. Even the people that we dislike and who are doing actions that harm others. And so it's not the people who are the enemy. It's actually the afflictions. It's the anger, the attachment, the arrogance, the jealousy. These are the problems. And we can see that we get overwhelmed with these disturbing emotions just like others. And so why be angry with the person? We know what it's like to be overwhelmed by anger. We can look in our own experience and see that we're not happy when this is happening. And so instead, we can disagree, with actions that are happening, and work to cultivate compassion for those who are creating so much suffering for others and also for themselves. Wishing they were free from these afflictions that are driving them to create a lot of harm. And then that same compassion for ourselves. May we also cultivate the causes to be free from our anger and other disturbing attitudes, because we know that we act in a way that is much more kind and compassionate when we're not being controlled by our anger. And so when we learn to forgive others and ourselves, this is like letting go of a hot coal that we've been clinging onto. As we see the disadvantages of holding on to our anger, we're motivated to work towards forgiveness, to open our heart and see the humanity in the other person, that they are just like us in wanting happiness and not wanting to suffer. And I'll turn it over here to Venerable Lamsel, who will take over.
Let me copy the key. Okay. Thank you, Venerable Manam. I encourage folks who don't have their cameras on to turn them on. It's so nice to see who we're in the room with and to connect in that way. And so following on from what Venerable Manam has been saying, what kept coming to mind thinking about this talk was the verse from the Dhammapada about hatred is never ceased by hatred, but by love. By love alone is hatred healed. But then the question comes of how to cultivate that love when anger has, or hatred, any form of anger has actually taken hold of the mind. Because just like when we heat water, it doesn't go from frozen to boiling in an instant. There has to be some progression of turning the mind, and just wishing to have a loving mind doesn't dispel hatred in and of itself, especially if it's something that has rooted itself deeply or is the product of a fair amount of rumination or energy put into nourishing this seed of anger in our mind. And to go back to the start of the meditation that Venerable Manlam led around recognizing this truth that we all want to be happy and not to suffer, then we can kind of connect in with the Buddhist definition of love, and that it is wanting all beings to have happiness and its causes. And yeah, this is, as we kind of went through last night in the Four Measurables, it's like how wonderful it would be if all beings had happiness and its causes. May they have these, I will cause them to have these. And then we request the inspiration of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to help us do this. But to actualize this, we must work with our anger. As Venerable said, just saying, oh, I shouldn't be angry, I don't want to be angry, doesn't deny the fact that there is this defilement in our mind that arises. And until we have progressed quite far along the path, it will keep raising its head. And so we must learn ways to work with it and to not judge ourselves for it, but to kind of accept that it's there and then keep turning our mind towards more beneficial states. And so this is where forgiveness comes in, and that's what I wanted to talk about today and also lead us in a meditation on. And to also first get clear on what forgiveness is, because it's not just, the idea of forgive and forget. It's not this naive, oh, it didn't happen, or it's not a problem, but rather it is quite simply, first of all, just letting go of our anger through a process of wise reflection. And it's making the firm decision to not cut any person, no matter what they have done, from our heart, from our sphere of love. And again, this is through a process of reflection that recognizes our shared humanity, that also comes back to our own sense of integrity about the type of person we want to be. And you can also see that forgiveness comes in with a perspective of kind of profound acceptance of what has happened, not agreement, not condonement, but the past has happened, and we can't change what has happened. So forgiveness is this giving up of wishing that the past was different. It's happened, but how are we going to respond? And not necessarily just react with our disturbing emotions. And with forgiveness, it's the beginning of inner freedom, because someone can do something quite horrendous, but they do it once and then they move on with their lives. But daily, we can torture ourselves by replaying what has happened and inflicting on ourselves the harm again and again as we recall it and have the emotional reactions to it and remind ourselves of how unfair this was and how horrible it is and the great impact that it's having. And all of that isn't to be denied, but to see how that is not helping ourselves to cultivate peace, ease, and to let go of the defilements. And with forgiveness also, we are letting go, as the Buddha said, that to this idea that hatred can benefit us, to see clearly that this mind that wishes to harm others, that wishes to get away from, that's not our friend. Whereas with this acceptance and this extension of loving kindness that sees the potential in any living being, no matter what they've done, to grow, to transform, to blossom, this is an incredibly powerful, beautiful state of mind. Yeah. And I wanted to, on this note, and coming back to the idea that we are not, no one, we ourselves, I think, is easiest to identify with because we know our own experience very well. But to then extend that self-awareness to others, that we are not the worst thing we have ever done, right? Like if you can think of the worst thing you've ever done, would you like to be reduced down to that one action, that's all anyone knows about you or defines you as? I mean, it's ridiculous. We are constantly changing phenomena with this seed of purity within us that we can grow and nourish. And the same is true for others. And recently, a book was published by Venerable Children called The Key of Compassion. And it's the culmination of almost 30 years of her correspondence with people in prison. And so it contains their poetry, their letters to her and to other monastics here at the Abbey. We have a prison program that reaches out to about 1,000 men and women across the United States. And we send them books and letters and malas and different resources so that they can learn how to transform their minds to generate healthy regret for the harm that they have done, and then transform into the people that they want to be. So I wanted to read one poem that kind of embodies the idea that we are not the worst thing that we have ever done, and the power of forgiveness, both for self and others. And so this is called Awake by Lewis. I woke up this morning in prison, serving 2 life sentences. And because of my actions, in all likelihood, I will die in prison. I thought about my father and about the day he is gone, and how I'll probably no longer have any family support whatsoever. I became depressed and formulated how fitting it will be with no more family, that it will be time to end my own life. But then I felt something. It was sprouting from a seed. The turning of the Dharma allowed me to see the grand picture. How can I help liberate others from the wheel of samsara if I'm already running away from facing the prison of this life? Because of practice, there is compassion for myself. Because of practice, there is compassion for others. I smile because I understand that I will not kill myself. The Buddha shares a smile. I shall smile another day. Yeah, just this man's capacity for self-forgiveness to start with is just astounding to me. Really honoring his innate goodness no matter what he has done. And this man has corresponded with Venerable Children for a very long time. And he was convicted for killing his mother and stepfather, his stepfather who brutally sexually and physically abused him. And now he's actually an agent of peace and transformation in the prison where he is serving those 2 life sentences and is helping others to transform their minds because of the work that he has done. And this is because others believed in him and his ability to transform, and his own work for self-forgiveness, seeing the good in others. And this is not to deny that forgiveness is not easy. It is actually far easier to hold on to our anger than to forgive. And largely that's because that is what we're habituated to. The defilements have been in our mind since beginning this time. But also it's because forgiveness is such a deep letting go that it's like dying in a way. We have to really let go of this identity of I am this person who is like this. You are that person who is like that. And we're in this dynamic that's not going to change. Letting go of that cannot be so easy, especially if certain dynamics are still unfolding or still in action. But as we know, if we watch closely to our mind, if we attend with mindfulness, we are ever-changing phenomena. And in each moment, there is the possibility to let go and to not believe everything that we think and to cultivate more positive, beneficial thoughts. And so the beauty of loving kindness and forgiveness is really honoring the power of intention, that we can grow away from our current state of whatever resentment or grudges or hostility or confusion that we have. And we can cultivate an ever-widening sphere of love that can encompass the strangers, the difficult persons, our whole neighborhood, the whole world. It's just a matter of practice, just showing up each day and reaffirming the direction that we're going into. I was very moved by the call that Monte gave to wake up every morning and affirm the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts that we live by, so that every day we move really clear of who we want to be in the world and how we want to influence those around us. And they don't need to know that what our source of refuge is or the ethical guidelines that we hold, but they in a way will know from how we move and how we speak and just the way that we carry ourselves. As Dhammadippa Roshi said, that just how we are can be the greatest teacher to our children, just as they watch how we speak, the decisions that we make, how we respond to difficulties. and the capacity of the human mind, of the human heart, to offer kindness and compassion in the most difficult situations is well known. We can look to situations like in the survivors of those in the concentration camps. In Viktor Frankl's work, he reminds us that, there was those people, and they weren't the majority, but there were those who, in the most dire situations, were the ones that were going around comforting people, offering others the last piece of bread, cultivating hope in what would seem like a hopeless situation. And in the Tibetan refugees, those who escaped, there were those who, when asked, one person who was asked by His Holiness, what was the greatest difficulty? And one monk responded, I was afraid of losing my compassion for those that were torturing him. So the human heart is incredibly resilient. We have these examples to draw on. It's just a matter of familiarizing the mind with a different way of looking at things. And so that's what I would like to lead us in a meditation on, a reflection on forgiveness, so we can also lead ourselves to have this increasing stability and beauty of mind, so that we can embody this. There's a few other verses from the Dhammapada where the Buddha says, live in joy and love, even among those who hate. Live in joy and health, even among the afflicted. Live in joy and peace, even among the troubled. Look within, be still, free from fear and attachment. Know the sweet joy of the way. So by cultivating forgiveness and loving kindness in our hearts, we can be the calm within the storm, and then extend that to others. So we can transition to meditation posture that's comfortable for you. Just making sure the back is straight, body is relaxed. Taking a few deep breaths. And just allow the breath to be natural and soft, not controlling it in any way. Eyes closed or just lowered, letting in a little bit of light. And just become aware of yourself on the seat. And I'll guide this forgiveness meditation. It's got 3 steps. And it's a process. This is a meditation not just to be done once, but multiple times. And we first begin with actually asking for forgiveness from others for the harm that we have done. Because we can recognize, if we look, that there are many things that we have done that have hurt or harmed others. We may have betrayed or abandoned others. caused them suffering knowingly or unknowingly, due to our own pain, anger, and ignorance. And so just allow these instances to come to mind where you have harmed others knowingly or unknowingly. And allow yourself to feel the sorrow of recognizing that. But we hold this also with the recognition that we can be free of this burden by asking for forgiveness. So as these memories come to mind of how we have harmed others, we can allow ourselves to feel healthy regret and sorrow for the harm we have done and ask for forgiveness, reciting silently or softly to ourselves, I ask for your forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness. And then we can turn our attention to forgiving ourselves, because we can often be our most harsh critic and can get so angry with ourselves when we don't live up to our own expectations, when we can't follow through with what we intellectually know what we want to do, but then find ourselves still acting out of places pushed around by our anger, greed, fear, jealousy. And so in this space, we can forgive ourselves when we have gone beyond our own ethical values, where we have harmed others or ourselves. So accept these feelings of regret and sorrow for where we have hurt ourselves, hurt others, and embrace ourselves with forgiveness for the ways that I have hurt myself or others through action or inaction. Out of fear, pain, or confusion, I now extend a full and heartfelt forgiveness. And as you keep reflecting, we can say to ourselves, I forgive myself. I forgive myself. And from this tender place where we recognize and at least in part accept our own vulnerability and foibles, we can then extend this heart of forgiveness to others who have harmed us. And so we can bring to mind those who have harmed us. Perhaps they're not the most grievous instance in this space. Bring these people to mind and recognize that others have harmed us out of their own fear, pain, and confusion. And we have been carrying around the pain of this situation in our hearts long enough. And to whatever extent we can, in this moment, we offer forgiveness. Again, not condoning what happened, not saying it was okay, but by recognizing that others were acting out of a place of their own confusion and suffering, which we know within our own experience, we can put the anger and resentment down and free ourselves from the pain of it all. So as we recall these memories and these situations, we can silently repeat to ourselves, I offer forgiveness. I forgive you. And as we do this reflection, we may find that instead of forgiveness, we are face to face with our anger, our resentment, our fear, our blame. And we can just recognize that it's there and allow it to float away. Forgiveness can't be forced, but we can reaffirm the intention to, as much as we can in this moment, to let the anger go. And to conclude this short reflection, we can allow ourselves to feel as best as we can the peace and ease that comes from letting go, freeing ourselves from the prison of this frozen moment of our anger holding on to harm that's got done in the past. And reaffirm our wish to move forward in a different direction towards loving kindness and peace. So, thank you. And I think now we are very happily welcome to any questions that folks have. You can raise your digital hand if you know how, or wave at us, and then I think Trisha will help guide those to ask any questions. Okay, we can start off with David. Unmute yourself.
David should unmute.
Okay,
I think we lost him.
looks like it. Questions from anyone else? Vandana?
Thank you so much, Venerables. That was very wonderful meditation you both did. And the second one, the forgiveness, is kind of it's very important because we forget about ourselves when we start on the Buddhist path, we try to learn loving kindness, compassion for other people, but we forget ourselves in the process, that we are also one of them, and we have to first start with ourselves. I think I find it's very powerful practice. So thank you. I just wanted to make this comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important also that starting with forgiving ourselves also brings forth our humility, right? Like, we've hurt others as well. So by recognizing that to an extent, asking for forgiveness ourselves, then it's not me high and mighty forgiving others on my moral pedestal, but it's more of an even playing field.
Isabel.
Thank you. I appreciated both of your talks. There is a lot there about the possibility of any new moment and change. I appreciated the poem. I appreciated so much of what you said. I do find the word anger ambiguous. I find that blame, hatred, resentment, all those types of emotions definitely are harmful. I think anger, when it's due to our samskaras and we just repeat endless anger, turns into hatred and blame. But anger itself, I think we need to be very careful, especially as white people. You're white and I'm white, at least you appear white to me, to try to dismiss anger or view it as something negative, because I think we need to recognize harm, we need to name harm, otherwise we live in a dysfunctional society, in dysfunctional even Buddhist orders. So I find the word anger actually difficult in this case, but I have appreciated very much all your insights, and I thank you and thank everybody here, and especially Bhikkhu Bodhi for his tireless dedication. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabel. And yeah, I agree that we do need to call out harm and support others who are being harmed. But when we can do that with a mind holding everyone involved with compassion, recognizing that we're all trying to aim for this contentment and happiness, and that there is someone who is very, very confused about how to go about that, and their actions are causing harm, we're going to be able to respond in a way that is more helpful, that's not just going to perpetuate anger continuing to, have anger towards the perpetrator. Isn't going to be helpful to help them to be able to, whatever kind of support they might need to work with their mind so that they could perhaps change the way they're seeing things and not cause harm. And it's not going to support the person being harmed. When we are acting with anger in our hearts, we're not going to be able to hold them with this kind of, like acknowledging, of course, like harm is being done, and anger arises very naturally. But when we can respond with, kind of like a compassion that is firm, because compassion isn't just something that is like, I'm a doormat and people can do what they want. But when we can respond with, with compassion and understanding, and without anger, we're gonna be able to be of more benefit in that situation. We're going to not be nurturing the habit of anger in ourselves. We're not going to be modeling the anger for others as a beneficial way to respond. So I definitely agree that harm needs to be called out and injustice does need to be called out. And we can do that without anger, with a lot of practice. It is not easy.
Rishika?
Hi, Venables. Good to see you. So I have a question. If it's okay, when we went to the part where we were forgiving others for things they had done to us, I wonder if it was a bad idea. Well, I added this part because I noticed when I was just saying, like, for example, Auntie, I forgive you for saying these mean things. My mind almost assumed malintent, and I really don't think so. I added a part. I'd be like, I forgive you for saying these things. I know you thought if I listened to these things, it would help me. Even if, like, even in my exercise, sometimes I would say, like, if the person physically intended to hurt me, I know you thought that hurting me would make you happy. You were suffering, you were seeking happiness, because if you were content, there's nothing to seek, but you were seeking happiness. You thought that was how you could get it, but it did not happen to be harmed. Is that part okay? Because otherwise, I just felt myself getting really pissed off. But when I thought about it as, okay, you told me to do this because you thought if I did it your way, I would be happy. It's a lot easier. Is that okay? Because I am assuming that I know their intention.
Yeah, I mean, we can only guess. I mean, sometimes it appears quite obvious that someone is actually trying to harm us, and sometimes they let us know that they are acting out of revenge or different things like that.
Yeah, and in that case, I use
but-
you think hurting me will make
Yeah.
you happy, kind of.
Yeah, and this, I mean, my mind goes back to verses from Shantideva, his guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, where he says, you know, everyone wants to be happy and not suffer, yet too often we run towards suffering as if it was happiness, and we destroy what would be happiness as if it were our enemy. We look for happiness in all the wrong places. So yeah, I think in part of this forgiveness meditation, it is recognizing that the others are confused or they didn't know, so knowingly or unknowingly, if they harmed me. Same to ourselves. Sometimes we do things with the best of intentions, and it's really not what the other person needs. It makes the situation worse in a way, or at least they respond to it, react. Yeah, it's not beneficial. So I think putting ourselves in the other person's shoes and trying to understand is helpful. Yeah, the meditation is not meant to incite the afflictions, rather to soothe them. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thomas.
Hey, thank you for these teachings. Venerable Lamsel, I heard you briefly mentioned intention, and I don't know that much about like the Tibetan traditions, but there was one time that I was in a group and they were talking about like the mind training sayings, and one of them that kind of confused people was right all wrongs with one intention. That was what I thought of, and I guess I'm just curious, intention in like the Tibetan traditions, if it has any sort of like special significance or meaning. Thank you.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, so in the Tibetan tradition, the one presentation of the mind has 51 mental factors, and 5 of them are omnipresent. Intention is one of them. So it's kind of what directs the mind. And it can be also what is karma, how we create karma through this mental factor of intention. In the mind training slogans that you're talking about, where it's, I think the one that I know is like, put all the blame onto one. or sorry, can you repeat how did you phrase it again? The way that you said it.
If I remember correctly, it was right all wrongs with one intention.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's two ways to look at this. There's one where it's pull all the blame onto one and right all wrongs with one intention. So the blame we put it on is self-centeredness. And righting all wrongs with one intention is with bodhicitta. In this aspiration to become a Buddha to benefit all beings. So this intention or this aspiration that we have in our mind, that we can right all wrongs with this wish to become a Buddha, because with a Buddha, being a Buddha, then we will have all the qualities necessary to know how to bring each and every single sentient being to the highest happiness. But in the meditation, what I was saying is honoring the power of intention, is that just making the aspiration of, I want to let go of my anger, I want to forgive, even if in that moment we don't have this huge feeling of our heart opening and the anger releasing, setting that intention is incredibly powerful. It will gain momentum, especially if we do the meditations repeatedly. That setting that intention again and again will create a force in the mind that when anger arises next, we have a doubt. We don't want to follow it because we have been habituating our mind to a different way of thinking. So that's kind of what I was meaning by honoring this force of intention in our mind, by directing the mind in beneficial ways again and again. And that becomes the nature of our mind then moving forward.
Sheila.
Thank you, Venerables. I have a curiosity. Could you speak more about the verses of Shantideva, please? You had mentioned it just in a response 2 questions ago. So I thought hearing more about the verses of Shantideva would be of interest. It is to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Shantideva was a where did he live? 8th century sage, monastic, who composed this book, the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or Bodhicharya Avatara. Yeah. And in it, he describes how to cultivate bodhicitta. And one of the chapters, it's very well known, a lot on the disadvantages of anger, was inspired also by Shantideva, this chapter 6 of how to work with the mind that is experiencing anger and really shifting it to see how unhelpful it actually is, especially when we have this aspiration to be of benefit to others. Our anger gets in the way of that. And it's a 10-chapter book written in verse that's quite beautiful and inspiring. There is a chapter on the benefits of bodhicitta and really cultivating that strong aspiration. He goes into mindfulness and introspective awareness. Cultivating fortitude is the chapter about anger. Let's see, what's chapter 7?
Joyous effort. So he goes through the 6 perfections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the verses that I mentioned are from the chapter 1 on the benefits of bodhicitta, where it's this recognizing that how confused we are as Venerable Monlam identified, our shared common enemy is ignorance and the delusion, greed, and hatred. And how often that even though in each moment we want to be happy, we search for it in the wrong places. In praise, in material things, in reputation, these things that won't come with us to the next life. So it's a bit of a reality check, but it's
Thank you.
Patricia?
Um, Thank you so much for these teachings. I wondered if you might be able to speak just a little bit to an emotional response to these kinds of times.
Mm,
That seems to be a kind of an acquaintance of anger. Sometimes there's just like a profound sorrow at
mhm,
watching, reading the news, seeing things happen in our communities and around the world. And I wonder if you might speak a little bit to a resourceful way to respond to that kind of emotion arising.
mm,
Yeah, I think one is just to allow. First is to allow and be with the sorrow. I mean, when our human family is hurting, it's a natural response to feel the pain of those who are suffering. And it's a good thing that our heart is moved. I mean, this is the start of compassion when the heart quivers in response to the suffering of others. But then it's to move into not just stay in that empathy where we're feeling with and having that sorrow, which can start to feel really heavy if we just stay there, but then to move into a state of compassion that wishes others to be free from suffering and knows that they can be. I think that's where the hope comes from, because it doesn't see that the situation is static, that there can be things that can be done. And even just broadening our own mind by extending metta or loving kindness to those in pain, it makes a difference. It connects us with them. And then from that space, we can do more active things than just extending. And in some situations, we can't really do much practically. Like, stopping a war, there might not be much that we can do to the bigger situation, but there can be seemingly small but not insignificant things that we can do to contribute. In doing that honors our intention to be of benefit and connects us to others. And with this wish that, like, wherever I can in this moment, in this life, in the future lives, may I be of greater and greater benefit as I can. And to guard the unhappy mind, I would say as well.
mm,
Because in Shantideva's text, he identifies that unhappiness is the forerunner of anger.
mm,
So we can feel our
mm.
sorrow and honor that, but we want to move into compassion or loving kindness and not let the unhappiness stay there. Because that unhappiness then just breeds this anger that then wishes to harm. So to kind of know what we want to move towards and know what we want to guard ourselves from. Any final questions?
I think there would be time for one more question if, oh, now there is one question. So this will be the last one.
Yeah, Quinn, you can ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my phone just came on. So my question is, I notice whenever I get angry, it's when I have to go somewhere and there's some time limitation. For example, like in the morning, I have to take my kids to school and they take forever to go there. And I was like, hurry up, get to the car or go swim, practice something. And it's like a pattern. And sometimes I was just like, well, why do I have to accept that? We're going to be late anyway. But I don't know. Sometimes it's just like we can be late because we're getting in trouble. So I don't know how I can change my mindset to accept being late. That may not be the best option, every single time, but it's just that irritation, frustration, sometimes anger would, arises when that happen.
Yeah, I could really relate with what you're saying, Quinn. My sister is always late, and this was a habit pattern that started when we were kids. Um, and so I think you're just really spot on with working towards acceptance and really identifying that the expectation of being on time or the expectation that it's going to take, 10 minutes to get ready when, in reality, it's going to take twice that long. And seeing where the expectation is, and then that's likely leading to the irritation that follows, can be helpful. It sounds challenging though. I mean, I hear you that there are things that you can't be late for. And maybe there's just also ways to, start getting ready earlier. I'm sure you've thought of all of these different things because you've probably tried many, many different strategies. But really seeing that anger and frustration is coming from your mind, that it's not something that's happening in the external situation, and that there are different ways to respond. And that frustration might not actually help your kids get ready. It may lead to them being more kind of stressed and frustrated and forget where their shoes are and things like that. And so, yeah, I think you're really spot on with working towards that, like acceptance of what the situation is and how can I show up in a way that, just really honors the goodness in my heart and how I want to model. What kind of model I want to be for my kids, even in these stressful situations.
Thank you, Rambles.
Ante, is there time for Rashika's question? Or
Did Rashika have one more question?
No, it's actually just a comment, like about the being late thing, because I have ADHD and apparently that's a time thing. Like, if you know you're going to be late and there's nothing you can do about it, I like to play this game with myself. I'll say, that blowout that happened in the bathroom? Have we been on time? That would have happened in my car. And then it's like, oh God, I'm okay with being late. Like the blowout, the diaper thing. So I always think, or if there is an accident, oh wow, if I was 5 minutes earlier. I don't want that to be anybody, but it could have been me. And that actually helps, like if you can't help it. So just listen.
Thank you.
Okay, then I think we'll have to wrap it up for here of the afternoon. So thank you. Those are very, very beautiful presentations from both of you. Very deeply moving. Partly overlap with the practice that I was going to introduce in the evening session, so I have to figure out how to work around it. But
repetition is not a bad thing.
yeah, doesn't hurt to go over the same territory from slightly different angles.
Yeah. And we just posted a dedication prayer that we can end with.
Yeah, so please. You want to recite that?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Venerable.
Thank
Okay,
you very much.
yeah. So please, all the participants, please remember that we do have another session that will be starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then please convert that to your own time zone. And so I will give the presentation, a practice and presentation from 7 to 8, and then we all come together for some concluding reflections at 8 o'clock Eastern Time to wrap up the day's program.